So we were talking about the hole in the wall, Dad. The hole in the wall.
The hole in the wall.
So, Dad, we fish a lot of tournaments all around, and there's a place that comes to mind like Greenville, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And in Greenville, we fish Lake Washington, which has received a lot of attention. But also we could fish other lakes, which is right off the Mississippi, Lake Lee, Lake Winnington, Paradise, and basically that is what the hole in the wall was. It was an oxbow. Right off the Mississippi. But tell the people about when you said y'all used to go in the hole in the wall, and those cypress trees would be around. Y'all would take that cork and flop it right over there, sling that cork right next to that tree, and all of a sudden that cork would just go down.
Yeah, and that's one of the places that a lot of people didn't know how to get into.
Right.
It was almost like a secret place, for us. But you used to go down, and it was down a steep hill. We could go down and
off the levee, right?
Off the levee, have to kind of snake the boat through different places to get your boat into the water. But once we got in that water, we'd throw that cork beside that big old cypress, and we had those long corks. That cork never sit up. It just go, and it's just somebody said, "Bring it to me." Boom, boom, and we talking about all day long, just slab, big old black crappie, and we didn't know back then was it called black crappie or white crappie. We just know there was crappie.
Right. But that it's there are several people. Not a lot of people know about the hole in the wall, but people like Reverend Faulkner know about the hole in the wall. Touche knows about the hole in the wall, and they were telling you about. We mentioned about Robert Granberry. He's the one that
he's
really
the king of that.
Yeah. He told them and introduced them to the hole in the wall. But they're like this cap right here. This is the Legacy Edition design. It talks about and it depicts kind of where we started to where we are now. And so back then, it wasn't no big bass boat with a trolling motor on there going in these places. Y'all had a John boat, maybe with a 9.9 horsepower engine back there. And
no trolling motor.
So what they had to do was do a technique called sculling. And then come to share with people what sculling is.
Now sculling is you're going to be at one end of the boat. And a lot of times you look across the lake, you see a lot of the boats kind of jacked up in the fishermen's up at the front end of the boat, working something in the water, which we call the paddle. And he just taking that paddle, moving around, almost like a figure eight, and pulling that boat all over the lake. We didn't have a trolling motor.
No trolling motor.
This was the trolling motor right here. There. And we could do that all day long. The wind come up, we could hold that boat still while we fishing that cypress right there.
Yeah, and we were, it's amazing. It was no power poles back then, no anchoring system, no talon. They would go down the bank using that paddle, but also when they wanted to fish a stump or fish a tree, they could hold that boat in place. I'm not talking about the boat wobbling. I mean boat in place, sitting still, and they're just dipping, and just wearing those crappie
wearing them out.
Wearing those out. And also, they didn't have y'all didn't use any rods and reels back then.
Well, go on back a little further. We could not use rod and reels. On further back, we could only use a cane pole, and then we moved up to a fiberglass pole. And that Black Widow.
B&M used to produce, and I believe they still do. And this is old school.
Yeah.
Black Widow fiberglass. Dad would go down sometimes to Arkansas, and he'd come back. My present when he would come back would be the Black Widow. And man, this is kind of how we all got started fishing. But Dad, also talking about back then and the hole in the wall. I don't know if we mentioned in the other episode or not, but because of Jim Crow laws, which was different in every state and every city. There were certain things that black people could do and black people couldn't do. You know, back then they had white only water fountain, uh, black only water fountain, and they had different rules in place, really, so that there would be uh, no equality.
Right.
There, the African Americans definitely could not be equal. So they always came up with stuff. And one of the things that you could recall, you guys couldn't use minnows.
We could not use minnows. And we tried our best to just kind of sneak some minnows because the fish would bite minnows.
Maybe trap a minnow on the bank or something
Yeah,
like that in the creek, and they'll try to use it. But tell when the game warden will come.
When the game warden, and the game warden used to walk up and down the bank pretty much all the time back then. And when the game warden, we should hear it, and it was kind of like we had like a message all down the lake. Warden, 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 warden. I used to sing it out. And that let us know that the game warden was on his way. So if we were using like minnows, you could start trying to get it off to your hook. Either just take your pole out of the water.
But sometimes you say he would come up there and you're getting a bite.
Yeah, when sometimes you come up there and
start talking to you.
Start talking, then you start getting a bite. We would take and just snatch our pole and just try to snatch that bite out of the fish mouth. So we wouldn't catch no fish in front of the game warden.
Right. But you know, and some people are like, "What are you doing? You're doing that stuff back then." Listen, it was not equal, okay, back then at all.
And rods.
Yeah, rods and reels. Y'all said that.
We could not fish with a rod or reel.
Yeah.
You had to have back then only cane poles.
Yeah.
No fiberglass back then, only cane poles. But one of the reasons we couldn't even afford a fiberglass pole back then, rod and reel.
Right. And so, you know, it's like I said, I've researched that, and it's hard to find. But you start talking to different people, and they'll tell you, yeah. And like I said, it was different from every city, from different states, and sometimes every different counties.
Yeah, right.
Those Jim Crow laws. But thank God we are past that era. But you know, talking about that hole in the wall, key people knew about it. But one guy, Touche, who's still alive today, he was the first one that we learned about lime and chartreuse.
Lime and chartreuse
jigs. And we're like, you know, now that we're fishing the tournament trail, everything is chartreuse. I mean, black is chartreuse, red is chartreuse.
Lime and chartreuse is just like American Express.
You don't leave home without it.
You don't leave home without it.
Right? So trust me, you look at our tackle box, everything in there has some color combination chartreuse. But Dad, you had a favorite color also, and this might shock a lot of you, but listen to what his favorite color was.
Black and white.
Black and white jigs.
When I came out of the Navy and I started fishing, I made a promise to myself when I came out of the Navy that I'm going to fish for a month straight. And that's what I did. And black and white jigs. I didn't even take minnows. I just used a black and white jig. And that black and white jig caught me some buffaloes.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times you don't hear people catching buffaloes on the pole, on the line. But this black and white jig, I hung a couple of buffaloes with that.
Yeah. And for some people, they might listen to buffalo. Buffalo's some good eating.
Yes.
Buffalo fish is some good eating. Especially, they're bony, and their bones are unique looking. But you normally get them ribbed out.
Oh, man.
And there is nothing like buffalo fish. But, you know, the hole in the wall is just a magical place. And in the next episode, you'll hear my mom talk about the hole in the wall and how they took my grandmother, Big Mama, to that hole in the wall also. But name a couple other places in Arkansas that you guys used to fish.
Another place to call is Whitehall. I don't know if it's still available or not.
Yeah, Whitehall will get dangerous.
Yeah, Whitehall, the wind would come up, and you know, we didn't have no big boats, so you had to be very careful out there at Whitehall. Greenleaf was another, and it's another one that we used to catch a lot of shell crackers. Mm-hmm. And that is Keith.
Yeah,
Keithley Lake. Man, you talking about huge shell crab. And I mean, we talking about you going down there, you think, well, we going to brim fishing and Melwood.
Yeah.
Melwood was another one.
Now listen. When he's saying Melwood,
not
Millwood, Melwood. There was a Melwood lake that had big crappie and big brim, and there's a Millwood that also produces big crappie. So, but we're talking about Millwood. But
Melwood.
Yeah.
Melwood. We could
Melwood.
get to.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
We can get to
the hole
in the wall
from Melwood.
From Melwood, it's a little run down the Mississippi. Now look, you cannot be out on the Mississippi River with no 3 or 4 horsepower.
You got to make sure your equipment is at tip-top shape if you're gonna go out there on any river, but especially the Mississippi. And we'll share maybe in another episode about what happened to us when we went out to the Mississippi and wasn't using some wisdom. Jesus, you talking about praying for real, y'all. But these are memories and experiences that we still use to this day, even with fishing.
Right.
Those things that we learned back then, and you guys learned and passed on to me, we still use them. With all this new technology and all that type of stuff, there are still some things
you can't rule out.
Yeah, you can't rule out,
no.
and experience has taught you those things. But
and I started this guy fishing when he was
2 years old,
and it bit him. It bit him hard and sunk in deep. I mean, very deep.
Oh man,
he was one of the I guess one of the reason why I'm walking pretty much today, because I had back surgery. Mm-hmm. And this guy used to come into the room, and he had a little old pole, and he was to put a line on it, and then he was to hide behind, underneath of the bed, on the corner of the bed, and snatch the line like I was getting a bite. And he said, pull it, daddy. So we had fishing all through sickness, doing well, and we still fishing.
I have had the honor of, and my dad is my tournament partner, and there are certain things that we do within crappie fishing that I believe that we should just keep, because they are, bass fishermen don't fish like crappie guys don't fish like bass fishermen. Bass fisherman doesn't fish like trout guys, and there are certain techniques that are particular to our sport. And with all these things, I don't think that we need to get rid of some things to try to rise to a level of another sport. I believe we could still stay unique, and we don't have to change our identity in order to bring the level and the sport up to a more professional level. But mentioning that with he talked about his back surgery. I remember this, and I want to try to say this without getting emotional. I had a tournament to do. We had a tournament on Grenada, and he had to go in for another back surgery. You've had 3 or 4, mm-hmm. 3 back surgeries. And anyway, I'm going out to that spot, y'all, and I turn around and I look at that seat, and I don't see Dad sitting there. And just like how I'm going to hold myself together right now, I couldn't hold myself together out there on that lake. And here I am. It is dark. I'm headed to my spot trying to be the first one there. And I turn around and look at that seat, and that seat's empty. And I just break down and start crying. So I call him, and I'm like, Dad. And he's like, boy, you to the spot yet? And I'm like, no, I'm crying. And he goes, but what you crying for? I said, you ain't here, blah, blah. And he said, boy, you don't dry them tears up and get to that spot and get this, so you can get some fish. But fishing is in our DNA. And the reason why I am even fishing today, and that's why, tying this back into the Legacy Edition, there would be no me, there would be no Roper Outdoors if it wasn't for these people. My father, my mom, my grandfather, Big Daddy, Mr. Gamble, and Robert Grammer and all these other people, it would be no me if it wasn't for them. And so we're just paying homage. But stay tuned. You're going to get to hear from my mother, who you guys don't see a lot, but she's definitely behind the scenes. And she'll share with you about her experience on the Hole of Wall, and also about the Otter Pond.
The queen.